Hello, I'm Lin, and I'm a lawyer in trusts and wills. I have a suggestion. Do not have a will. If you don't want to have a trust, if you want to leave your estate to the default rule of the inheritance order of your state, it's fine. But do not have a will, please. Why? First, if you have watched my very first several episodes, perhaps you still remember the difference between a will and a trust. Both documents are for people to decide where their assets will go after they pass away. However, the will needs to go through the probate, while the trust does not need to. What is probate? The probate is a process where our assets need to go through after our dies to decide whether our assets will be distributed in this way provided in our will. Or if we don't have a will, we still need to go to the probate. The court will refer to the default rule of the inheritance order in the state and decides who gets what after we pass away. And for a trust, when we have a trust, it's not only a paper like a will, we also recorded it with the government. Like if we put a house in the trust, we record the deed in the name of the trust. If we have a life insurance policy, if we have a stock account, we record the trust as the beneficiary. As a result, when we pass away, there is no court involved, and all of the assets will go through to the people we designated as beneficiaries in the trust because it was already recorded in the government when we're still alive. So there is no need to go through the probate after we pass away. However, if we have a will, we have to go through the probate court. So if you don't want to have a trust, it's fine. Even if it saves on the time, usually it takes 1 to 2 years to go through the probate on average in the United States, because there is so many things the government needs to figure out before they make the decision to distribute the assets to our families. And usually it takes 5 to 20% of the net worth of our assets to go through the probate, because 1 to 2 years, yeah, it involves a lot of people's work, and of course it is costly financially. And also it will keep our information public instead of private in the probate court, because it wants to find out as many as possible people who can claim something from our estates. But that's fine. If you don't care about that, you can go to the probate, but please not a will. Why? Because sometimes a will can cause more trouble than the situation when you don't have a will. And if you have a will, do not ask me to help you to finish the probate after passing away. That can be a nightmare, just like what I am in right now. A client wants us to help her to go through the probate for the will of her deceased sister at the beginning of 2020, and right now it is 2022, 2 years passed, but the case is still not closed. It is pending in the court, with the court asking for a lot of information every now and then from us and from the clients. Why? Because it is really a shabby will. Because if we don't have a will, we just go to the court, and the court refer to the inheritance order of the state. It's troublesome, but it is very clear because who will get it? Okay, spouse, children, siblings, parents, it's fine. We just need to find such people. But when we have a will, what the court needs to figure out is whether the will is real and whether it is drafted by the client, by the people who already passed away voluntarily and competently. It's so hard because the person is already in the coffin. How can you know whether she or he drafted the thing like competently and voluntarily? You just cannot knock at the coffin and ask the person to tell you directly, right? So they need to have a lot of circumstance evidence, and that's the problem. Like the case I am stuck in, the deceased lady. I don't think no, I think she didn't hire a lawyer. She just asked her sister to type her will. And the will is really not that good because it is very clear there is difference in the fonts because somehow they changed the fonts when typing the document. And guess what? The court thinks it is an obvious evidence that there is a good chance that the will document is a fake one because who can make a will with different fonts? That is really a very low class mistake. And also because the case is very complex. The deceased lady does not have a spouse, does not have children. She has 7 siblings, okay, and 3 of them passed away. And the deceased person decided to give all of her estates to one of the 4 surviving siblings. Okay, very suspicious because the court wants to know whether the person has a spouse, whether the person has children, whether other siblings can claim something from the estates of the deceased sibling. So once the case goes through the probate, at the first time when it enters the door of the court is trying to find the faults on the will. Like they called me every now and then to tell me, okay, why there are different fonts? Because the client tapped the documents and they just switched the fonts accidentally. And then they asked me, why are there blanks on the will? Okay, because the client drafted the will themselves. So they just left blanks over there and fill out people's name over there as beneficiaries and executors. Yes, it is a very big mistake, but what can we do because it was made by the client, by the person who already passed away. And they asked me why the staplers were removed because they could see the mark where people removed it. Okay, because the clients removed it. So what can we do? But everything looks so suspicious. And guess what? They asked for a lot of information. How to prove the deceased person does not have a spouse and children. Oh my gosh, how to prove something does not happen. It is a common sense that we can prove things already happening. But how to prove things that haven't happened? We need to prove she does not have a spouse and children. Okay, we have affidavits from the long term and the family friends to say, okay, this person does not have a spouse, does not have children, to their best knowledge. And then the court asks us, how about siblings? Okay, 7 siblings and 3 of them already passed away. 4 surviving spouse, 4 surviving siblings, and the deceased lady only wants the money to go to one of the siblings. However, the court asked us, how about the surviving children and spouse of the deceased siblings? Perhaps they have something to say. Okay, we need to find them. And guess what? They're in Philippines, not in the United States. So it makes things harder and harder and complex and complex. I prefer her not to have a will. At least we can see who will be the next class of people who are closest to her, entitled to her estates. If that's the case, perhaps the case is already closed. So, guys, we will really make a very good fortune from this case because we have worked so hard to close the case for the client. Okay, I admit sometimes it's better to have a will than having nothing, and depending on the default rule of your state inheritance order, because you want to change something. You know, that's human nature. According to the default rule of the inheritance order, perhaps the assets will go to your spouse, your surviving spouse, 100%. Well, you always want to leave something for your loved children, your parents. If that's the case, a will be helpful because you can change the order with a will. Well, you still need to go through the probate. But please, either find an attorney to do that because they are the people who do that every day and they are the people who know what they're doing, or go through the probate yourself because such a shabby will is really a harm to our mental health. Basically, that's my suggestion. Have a trust, find an attorney to have a will in the worst case, but not a DIY will to hurt you and hurt us. Thank you very much for watching this video. I'm attorney Lin Wang. And if you want to have free one-on-one consultation in trusts and wills, please find my contact info in the description column. And you can subscribe to this channel by clicking on the button at the right corner with the S, subscribe. Thank you very much and have a good night. Bye.